Welcome, boys and girls. Costin here with a discussion about Broken Arrow and why you suck at using artillery in the game. And when I'm talking about artillery, I'm not just talking about tube artillery, rocket artillery, I'm also considering things like air defenses and even cruise missiles launched by planes. So there's all kinds of factors to go on the subject. But here are some of the big mistakes that a lot of people make, and I've seen this in way too many matches. They keep their artillery in a position, generally in the woods or some kind of hidden position, but they keep it on top of their supplies. Same with their air defenses. They'll keep them on supplies so that they can easily be resupplied. They don't have to be putting in the effort. That's one of the big mistakes a lot of people make. The other big mistake that a lot of people make is that they're not constantly using their artillery. They're just keeping it there in a very passive way for a very, very long period of time throughout the match. I've literally seen people go 20 minutes with multiple artillery units that were not doing anything. On top of supply points, hidden, I don't know exactly what they were waiting for. So that's the second thing, not using artillery. And then the third thing, very important, is this. Firing artillery from the same position without moving it. You know what these three things do to you? They're a surefire way to get blown the hell up and lose a lot of points. Or to waste a lot of points. It doesn't matter if we're talking about artillery or air defenses or anything like that. If you've got things staying still in the same position, people are going to notice eventually. Even the most dim-witted of players is going to eventually notice that they're getting obliterated from a particular position. And they're eventually going to fire on that position, or they're going to nuke on that position. So instead, how do you want to use artillery? Well, first off, you don't want to keep it on your supply points. That's a very, very important thing. The only time you get an artillery in a supply point is when you need to reload. Otherwise, don't keep it there. Your supply points can be in a forest, but usually you don't want your artillery to be in that forest themselves. Instead, what you want to do with artillery is hide them behind some kind of natural features like houses, forests, all that, but not in the forest. Why don't you want to hide them in the forest? Well, because you want to move. So let's say I'm looking to bombard this building right here. So here's how I would do it and how I would recommend people actually approach this situation. You target the point, you do a fire mission on a point, you get a couple of shots off, and then you move. Doesn't matter if you've been spotted, doesn't matter if there's any immediate return fire, you move, because you've just revealed your position. And you may also move when you haven't revealed your position if an enemy drone or helicopter or plane or anything has detected your position. The moment you feel that position has been detected, either because you revealed it yourself or the enemy has detected it, you move. This is one of the reasons why even in real life, a lot of artillery actually gets used on the roads, because they fire and then they move. So take a couple of shots, 3, 4. You can even expend a lot of ammunition on this, depending on what kind of opponents you're dealing with. But the important thing is you move. It doesn't have to be a great distance away, worth saying that. Because unless it's rocket artillery, MLRS, a lot of a lot of weapons that can hit you will be precision. So they'll target a particular area. So they'll hit this point, they'll take out the circle around here. Like if we depend on the range we're talking about, right? So like let's say, I spotted an artillery unit that's over there. I'm from this distance. I would fire in this position, right? With these self-propelled howitzers. Now obviously at this range they're going to have a lot of accuracy, but you can see the kind of damage radius that they would have. But what happens, right, if you've got all your stuff on a point like this, they've spotted you, you don't move, boom. That's what happens. It's not even the damage itself, it's the explosion of the supplies that's gonna blow you up. You want to avoid that happening. And then on top of that, you want to keep your artillery doing something. Artillery should be always doing one of three things. 1, it should be reloading. 2, it should be shooting. 3, it should be moving. get the control group, control 1, put it in there, pay attention to what's doing. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but just get in the habit of having your artillery doing something. But what if you don't know where the opponent is? Well, then think about it. Where would an opponent keep a unit? Think about it from a logical perspective. Like over here, they've got this point. A lot of people wouldn't just put stuff on the points unless it's vehicles, but they would keep things in the forest. Still, just throw a couple of shots on a point. Maybe they have some tanks or something along those lines. Get a couple of shots, fire, move, resupply. That's what you should be doing with artillery. What about their defense missiles? That's a different discussion, because obviously they're going to spend a lot of the match potentially just not doing anything. But when they do something, it is generally important. So what you want to do is hide them behind various things, but in a way that's not impeding their ability to fire. So for instance, an empty location surrounded by houses is a great position to station a Patriot or an S-300. Not in a forest. I emphasize that. You can hide it behind the forest, not in a forest because it's going to limit your movement. Unless you're dealing with enemy helicopters, then you can use the forest to retreat in. So if there were some enemy helicopters coming in, obviously I would shoot them down if I had something to shoot them at. But with a Patriot, obviously a Patriot against choppers, that's not going to work. So you can use the forest to hide away. But generally speaking, you want to keep stuff in the open. If they do shots, you move them. Doesn't matter how many shots it is. Doesn't matter if the enemy plane got taken out or not. You take a couple of shots. Like when you see an enemy plane, you activate your radar, you take the shots, then you move instantly. Because even if there's not a cruise missile coming your way, it might happen. And you're just giving that player information. And you never, ever keep a Patriot or an air defense vehicle on top of your supplies. It's a great way of getting it killed and losing the supplies at the same time. You also never want to shoot from a supply point, because even if you do move your artillery after you shot, people are going to target that position and are going to blow up your supply. So you want to avoid that happening. But also important, information. Drones can be very cheap. Shadows, Orions, RQs, doesn't matter, right? Recon drones, they can be very cheap. You'll lose a lot of them. But getting that kind of information to know exactly where you're hitting, like sometimes you can send a drone in such a situation. An RQ, a special forces drone is really good. So I think like if you're playing an online match, having at least one player with special forces and having that recon drone and then marking stuff can be very, very important for your success. Also, if you're using drones, mark where things are. Just approximate area and tell people, shoot it. Or shoot it yourself. If you're shooting at a location, mark it all the same. Because it's going to, especially if it's danger close fire mission, mark it all the same. Because it is going to be important information for people on your team to know about, so they don't get blown up by their own stuff. That is very, very important. Now, with regards to cruise missiles, let's touch upon that subject a bit. So, with regards to cruise missiles, I don't like having them on the ground. I prefer having them on planes. So, on the ground, I prefer having my HIMARS with regular warheads. But with regards to planes, or with regards to cruise missiles, you're going to usually need to fire a number of these in order to saturate enemy air defenses. So just get used to hitting that P button. Also make sure you're controlling the plane so it's not getting blown up while you're trying to fire your own stuff. Fire cruise missiles, get it out. If you want to deal with enemy air defenses, so your cruise missiles hit, you're gonna need multiple of these. Or you can use an F-117 because they can get away with things that other planes may not be able to. So just a very important point. Recon is important, constant movement is important, saturation of enemy air defenses if you're firing missiles is important. A single missile is not gonna get through enemy air defenses. 4 missiles, 1 is gonna get through, 2 is gonna get through. On that subject though, it can be useful if you're looking to bombard the position to also come at it from multiple angles. So, you know, fire one missile from one angle, just keep the plane moving. Because, like, the more angles you can hit fire from, the greater the chance is going to hit. Because, like, air defenses, they're going to have a limit. And yes, there are some planes in this game that do have a tendency of getting blown up because they get too close to the enemy. But just some important points on that subject, some important things to know with regards to using artillery, using air defenses, using recon in combination with that. On a final note, I do want to talk a bit about defenses, because this is related a bit with infantry. But how do you defend a location? Well, a lot of people will do, and we can speed up. Let's say I want to defend this hospital, right? Well, what a lot of people will do is they'll station stuff that's in the building itself, right? Or the buildings around the control point. Let's say this entire this entire complex is the victory point I want to hold. It can actually be better to do this. If an enemy is doing a tank rush and you see they're doing a tank rush from a distance, get your infantry out and then let them take the point, right? So let's say they've taken the hospital and then bombard the crap out of them with artillery. Blow them up, right? They do an airdrop, you blow them up with artillery, you blow them up with cruise missiles, you keep the artillery moving, and then once they are blown up, move your infantry, take the point, maybe deal with any stragglers, all that kind of stuff that you haven't seen. It's much better than trying to hold your position in a static way. In real life, the way infantry fights is you will never see infantry just holding up in a building, exposing themselves to an enemy tank. Infantry never wants to get hit by a tank, right? They're not dueling tanks, firing their main guns at them. That's not how infantry fights tanks. The way infantry fights tanks, they ambush them, or they hit them when they don't expect to, right? If a tank is firing on you, you run the fuck away. That's how you do it in real life. You run away, and then you call in an airstrike on the location where that tank is. Then you move in to retake that position. Apply it in game. You'll take far fewer casualties. You'll do far more damage. Those are some of the things I do to really maximize the damage that I'm doing on an enemy with artillery. With ranged weapons in general, like cruise missiles, long-range weapons in general, cruise missiles, artillery, air defenses, all that kind of stuff. So I hope this was useful to you. But a final and very important point, don't be afraid of losing all your units constantly in a match. Like, there is obviously a point to minimizing your casualties because you can allow an opponent to win just through doing more casualties than you. So you do want to inflict more casualties on an enemy than you take. That's crucial. But you shouldn't play the entire match trying to keep everything alive. That's not important in this game whatsoever. Christine, signing out.